made an indelible mark on the global music scene. With a Grammy win under her belt, she's inspired audiences worldwide with her mesmerizing music. But what's even more remarkable is her journey as a passionate philanthropist who's made a profound impact on education, healthcare, and the arts. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Chandrika Tandon, Grammy-winning musician, for a fireside chat with Shireen Bhan for a session that's titled Tandon's Triveni, Navigating Music, Philanthropy, and Success. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a warm round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to be back here on the Rising Bharat, Rising India stage. And what an absolute honor and pleasure and a privilege to be in conversation with Chandrika Tandon. Chandrika, thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us here. It's not very often that you see someone who's had a corporate career and has been at the very high end of a high-achieving corporate career kind of launch into an entirely new area. And you've done that, Chandrika. High-profile career that you built over many, many decades at McKinsey. And then you decided that music was your true passion, was your true calling. You know, for many of us here, and this Indian culture of log kya kahenge, how did that happen?
Well, I didn't have a choice. I sang before I could speak when I was very little. And even when I was at McKinsey and then I'd formed my own company, which was restructuring financial institutions all over the world, I would always, work very hard. But when I was in Brazil or when I was in Australia, I'd finish my work and at 10 o'clock hit a piano bar and listen to Brazilian music or Cliff Richard in Australia or the Seekers, So I was always interested in music and kept music in my life. But I decided about 25 years ago that music needed to be much more center stage because I had the privilege of asking the first world question as to what makes me really happy. And I wanted to rethink how I wanted to live because I had to think about the fact that I had one life and I wanted to develop this aspect of my life. Not to get anywhere, not to win a Grammy for sure, not to perform.
But just kind of happened to win one along the way. How does that happen?
I know that was a great, I was actually nominated in 2010 for my earliest album. And nobody knew who I was. In fact, I was nominated with 4 others like Sergio Mendes. Does anyone know Sergio Mendes? He did albums like Brazil 66. He's an icon. And I was one of those with them. I was the most unknown winner and nominee at that time. And this time we actually won. So it's been great.
It has been more than great. It's been absolutely fabulous. And it's been fabulous for all of us watching you go up that stage and win that Grammy. So ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our very own Chandrika Tandon, winner of the Grammy. But what was that moment like for you? Because as you said, you were nominated in 2010. But this time around, to actually winning it, did you have any expectation at all?
No, and I think what happened when we were announced, actually, the way the Grammys work is they announced the 5 nominees, one after the other. And we were the last nominee to be announced. And there was such a big, enthusiastic sound and applause when we were announced as the 5th nominee. So I barely heard them announcing the fact that we won. And what was amazing is that so many, there was just an outcry. People were dancing, and of course we were so thrilled. And I had these great collaborators with me. I want to say one thing. There's something very profound about what happened at the Grammys. That was the day our album was called Triveni. And we called it Triveni because it was a collaboration among three artists of very distinct rivers-like confluences. That was the exact same moment, which was coincidental, which we didn't know. When I picked Triveni, I didn't know that that was happening. We had the Mahaprayag going on.
Yes.
And it turns out the day that we won the Grammy was the day of Basant Panchami, where the biggest festivals were going on at at the Mahakumbh. So this was I guess we were meant to win in one way.
You were meant to win. It was your destiny, and what a wonderful moment it was. But you talked about collaborating with these three artists and then going on to win the Grammy for Triveni. And many people in this audience don't know that you actually didn't know each other. You met for the very first time and then decided to collaborate on this album together.
So we had three artists. There was a cellist, a Japanese cellist who lives in LA called Eru Matsumoto, who's a wonderfully beautiful cellist. And she's been in Forbes 30 under 30 for her amazing artistry. There's a guy called Wouter Kellerman, who's from South Africa, who's a flautist, and he's won, he was been nominated before, and he's won a couple of Grammys. He's, of course, known of my music. Eru and Wouter got together and wanted to think about healing as an idiom for what they wanted to create. So Wouter called me and he says, look, I love your music, I love your voice, would you like to work with us? The moment he spoke about healing, it got me, because all my work until then has been around mantras and around syllables and the thousands of emails. And I think the reason I have such a cult following with the music is because all of the responses and the reactions people have are about what it did for them. My son was an alcoholic and this cured me, and my sister had a brain tumor and this chant, the 8-syllable chant, really helped her, and this was the last music she wanted to hear before she died. So I have thousands of emails like this, I'm not exaggerating. So healing has been a very big exploration in my musical journey, and that's what I'm about. So when Wouter and Eru spoke about healing, I said, wow, this is interesting, let's try. But we had no idea how this was going to be, because we're all egotistical, we're artistic, we had strong views, and we came from very different traditions. None of them knew Indian music, they didn't know mantras, so we were coming at this of putting it together, and we wanted it to be accessible. So we were really battling it out, and then we had a 5-day workshop in New York. And that's when we created Triveni.
You talked about healing through music, and you said that this was something that came to you about 25 years ago. This spiritual epiphany, if I can call it that. What was it? What was the trigger that made you go from, as in your words, accidental living to intentional living?
I was in the middle. I had a company, and I still have it. But it was a company right after McKinsey where we did mega restructurings, one mega institution at a time, where we changed the stock price. In fact, I was a disclosable event for the SEC, because when a company hired me, the stock price would go up. So I was in the middle of a very large deal.
You were a disclosable event. I love that.
I was. So they hired me because people would actually try to find me in the company. And they would call my office to investigate which flight I was taking, because they would want to know where I was flying to so they could buy stock in that company. So we created billions of dollars in market value. But I was in the middle of a very important deal in Europe, which would have vaulted my company to the next level. And I was on a plane coming back, and I was the only passenger in first class, and I had Autobiography of a Yogi, which is this book which I hadn't read before. And I'm not a crying sort. I'm a type A. I'm a strong woman. I had all these labels to describe myself. But there I was, about to sign the deal when I came back to New York, and I cried the entire flight back. And I hadn't signed the deal, and I came back, shut the door for the next 2 days, and I cried. And a lot of my questions were, this is yet another deal. Yes, it would vault me to the next level. We would do well financially. We would do well from a reputation standpoint. I knew we could do the work. Is this it? What really made me happy? Why do I feel so troubled? Is this and all the first world questions of, is this my epitaph?
Is this your purpose in life?
Is this my purpose? And the wonderful thing is, I was so earnest about it that I wasn't going to stop till I got the answer. So I approached it with intense McKinsey-like doggedness, So I read 2,000 books. I went and met so many...
2,000 books?
Over the next year. It was insane. And I met people... rabbis, and of course I grew up in a Catholic convent school, of course the gurus, and they all came to me. The universe makes this happen. So all I wanted to have was have music in my life. And I will say, as a very strong businesswoman, music helped me find my whole self. because through music, I found meditation, and music and meditation came together to really explore so many more dimensions. And I do 10 times more than I did 25 years ago. Yeah, I turned 70 a few months ago.
Wow.
And so I'm much
So
older.
walking away with a Grammy at 70.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I've still got a few more albums coming out, so it's a lot of fun. But I think this is what I had the resources to do something about it. And I decided I couldn't wait another moment to change the course of my life. So I had to bring in music. I had to bring in a different way of thinking and living. And by the way, my business life got better as a result of that.
Well, you know, speaking about changing the course of your life, you're also using your life and your resources and your money to create impact. Again, I don't know how many of you know this, but Chandrika has put down, close to $100 million? Over $100 million in many philanthropic efforts, including education, which is the big one, on engineering, and that's why you've spent a large chunk of that money. Yes. Why did you feel that it was your calling to pay it forward? What was that compass? What moved in the needle to make you want to do that?
Because when you look at what it is, you know, we had a lot of resources. We still have a lot of resources. And so the whole goal of how do you want to serve the world? Because as part of finding yourself, you find that you can't just be successful alone. You really have to find a purpose which is greater than you. So when we all think about what's your purpose, it's not, oh, I want to be smarter, I want to be prettier, or none of that can happen. You're already given those genes. So your purpose has to be something very pure and something very big. And my goal was two. One was economic empowerment, and as I saw it in 2015, the economic empowerment was really going to come through STEM and technology, because I could see that technology was transforming every sector. We are seeing this much more now with AI and all of that. It's transforming healthcare, it's transforming education, it's transforming business, it's transforming risk, it's transforming every which way you look at it. The second thing was emotional empowerment. You can be the smartest person on the planet, but if you're a miserable SOB, you just don't have, you've got one life to live. And so part of this emotional empowerment for us was focusing on the arts and music. There's many things we can do in mental well-being and some kind. So my work and our foundation's work has been on these two angles. That's why we did the NYU Tandon School of Engineering, which is endowed by us. And then I've done many other things in education, including a business school in Chennai.
In Chennai. But, you know, I want to talk to you about how women are perceived. And, you know, you said you had many labels attached to you, type A and career and so on and so forth. As you have sort of come into your own, as you've lived a negotiated life on your own terms and made the choices that you wanted to make, what has it also taught you about being comfortable in your own skin, about not shrinking yourself to fit into these labels and fit into these boxes that people usually expect women to fit into? What would you tell women who are watching you walking away with a Grammy at 70 and living your dreams at 70?
I would say, as a woman, one of my most important lessons, and I learned this very early, in my early years at McKinsey, because remember, I was a brown woman who walked in without an American education into the boardrooms straight away. I didn't have the comfortable runway. In a sari. And I didn't have the comfortable runway of going through an American, you know, you have 2 years, 3 years of doing a PhD, doing a master's degree. It's very comfortable. You can sit around in jeans and you know, the professors help you. I didn't have any of that. They were paying big bucks to McKinsey, not to me, but to McKinsey to give advice. And people couldn't make anything of me. And the big lesson I learned is, I started out being so insecure, and so much of this noise inside my head saying, I'm not good enough, I don't know what I'm going to do, am I going to speak right, do I know what I'm doing? And I think what I learned is that when I walk into a boardroom, I'm not a woman. I'm the best prepared professional on that topic that's walked into that room. When I walk in as a mother, I'm the best mother I can be at that time. I'm not I'm not everyone's idea of a mother, but I'm the best mother I can be in my best knowledge. I can't work with your knowledge. I can't work with anyone else's knowledge. I'm using my knowledge. As a best wife, as a friend, I'm trying to be my best. So my whole narrative is two things. One is, I will never wear any label that weakens me, ever. I'm not a woman of color. I'm not a woman. I might be, for certain, in certain areas, I love being a woman.
Yeah.
But that's not my role in a boardroom. That's not my role when I'm singing. I don't want to get special privileges because I'm a woman. I'm an artist. I'm a business lady. I work. I have lots of things to say. And don't listen to me because...
Because you're a woman.
Yes, I was going to say something else. And I think the second thing, and this is very important, I think, for everybody. We all have grown up with this sense, and I certainly am very, very guilty of that, is that we are not good enough. And we wear this badge of perfectionism with great honor. I wonder how many of you think of yourselves as perfectionists. You know, we try. Why do we try? Because we're saying, I want to do more.
Yeah.
So that means we are not good enough. So this is my redefinition of myself, and I would say this is my single biggest learning. I am not a perfectionist. I am perfection.
What a fabulous statement. I'm not a perfectionist. I am perfection. I don't know how many of you are taking note of that, but that is such a profound thing to say.
It's so important, and it's not by your judgment.
Yeah.
I truly, my best self is here at this point. I'm not bringing my bad self. Sure, I have days when I have better selves, but at this moment, this is the best of me you're getting. So I am perfection. I'm not here to figure out how you judge me. And I think that's a very important redefinition and a rethinking, because this grand central station of thoughts and crisscrossing ideas just disappear. You're simply there being what it is you're meant to do, because you are your best.
Your best, and external validation should never be the measure of our success, our satisfaction, or our happiness.
Or your own internal noise that stands in the way of us accomplishing great things. And you asked me this about being an old musician, in a sense, at Grammy at 70. There's something daunting about, even when I was nominated first, to walk in and find all 10-year-olds, not 20-year-old artists, all trying to make their way. And here I'm an older woman. For the first time, I was the youngest person in the music industry. And you get up and sing. I mean, give me a speech, I'm happy to make it. But you suddenly get up and sing in a big audience. I hadn't done that before. So it requires a lot of rethinking of yourself and just defining yourself and saying, it's okay.
And you know what you've done, right? You've given me the segue to go exactly into that. You said you're happier singing than doing speeches, so let's get to it. Before I come to Triveni, here's a really lovely story. Chandrika is from IIM Ahmedabad before she actually moved to the US, and you were the last person to be interviewed on the day that you were being interviewed, and you think that what clinched things in your favor was the fact that you were asked to sing, and you sang in French.
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what you sang?
Of course I do.
Can you sing it for us?
Of course I can. So I just want to add to Shireen's story, which is, IIM Ahmedabad, I had in my resume that I had sung in AIR and done all of that in college. So I put in there French songs, little knowing that one of the three professors, Dr. Mohan Kaul, who was interviewing me, had actually spent many years at the Sorbonne in Paris. And so he just said, well, we're tired, sing us a French song. So I sang this song, which is a song about a lonely girl, is what I sang. It goes, I'm just going to sing you 2 lines from that. Okay?
Go ahead.
It's, tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge savaient bien ce que c'est que l'amour. Tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge savaient bien ce que c'est que l'amour. Et le mer dans le mer. And it goes on. It's a long song, but we can do more. But it all comes back. And the irony is that many years later, I went back to IIMA in 2011 and performed all this for IIMA, for the Silver Jubilee. And a couple of years ago, I performed it in Paris, for a whole French concert with some of the jazz players. So life comes full circle if you live long enough, I guess.
It does come full circle, but Chandrika, you know, you talked about the power of music and its ability to heal. We've had a long day here, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear from you something from Triveni, something that energizes us ahead of the Prime Minister's arrival.
Would you guys like to hear 2 lines of a
Yes,
chant?
yes.
But can I mean, am I allowed to do this? Would you guys like to sing with me?
Of course.
Okay, let's go. We're going to do a chant, which is, I actually did this in Triveni. It's called the Peace Chant in A. And this is a chant, it's in... So the Om, why don't everyone say Om together? Om. Let's do it louder. Om. One more time. Om. Now this is in the Phrygian dominant scale, but it's Basant Mukhari in the Indian classical. And the words are the 8-syllable mantra, Om Namo Narayana. Continuous repetition of these 8 syllables, the Narayana Kavacham, is said to purify all the cells in the body as our body goes through the cell generation and the regeneration processes. It harmonizes all the cells, which is why it's considered one of the most ancient healing mantras. So, Om Namo
Narayana.
Repeat after me. Om Namo
Om Namo
Narayanaya.
Narayanaya.
Namo Narayana.
Namo Narayana.
Namo Narayana.
Namo Narayana.
Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Narayana. Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana. Narayana. Namo Narayana. To be continued.
The fabulous Chandrika Tandon. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us, gracing the Rising India Summit and inspiring us with your wonderful words and your powerful music. It's been an absolute pleasure. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Chandrika Tandon.
Thank you, Ms. Tandon. What an incredible story, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause for Chandrika Tandon. Ladies and gentlemen, after hearing from the extraordinary and talented Chandrika Tandon, the Grammy Award winner, musician, entrepreneur and philanthropist, let's now change track. So what are we looking at over here?